DiJonai. Your game was stinking in the mud, and the Dallas Wings wanted nothing to do with you going forward.
So it looked like DiJonai Carrington just got booted from the Dallas Wings.
When a WNBA referee waves over security, the season changes. Careers tilt. Locker rooms tense up. A single hand signal turns a player into the loudest headline in the league. That's where DJ Carrington's story stops being a hot take and becomes a pressure test. The viral clips, the flagrant whistles, the trade that sent her from noise to a contender. Fans say it proves everything they've argued for months. Others say the label stuck long before the facts did. So, which is it? Chaos magnet or misunderstood enforcer? Tonight, we trace the path from a black eye that wouldn't leave the discourse, to a post-game standoff that stunned everyone, to a roster move that could swing a championship race. You'll see why some teams run from that kind of heat, and why one just bet its season on it. But the moment that flips the whole narrative didn't happen in a tunnel. It happened at mid-court, with millions watching, and it set off a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Stay sharp. This is where the story really starts.
Now, DiJonai Carrington couldn't keep her hands clean either. Was staying out of headlines on the internet. She was always in headlines, punching players in the eye. And then we have to remember, she nearly injured Paige. Like, everybody forgot about that. Y'all remember when she nearly injured Paige, nearly took her whole knee out? Like, we got to remember all of those things transpired during this basketball season, man. I'm here to tell you, they made it their business to get rid of her.
When a WNBA referee waves over security, the season changes. Careers tilt. Locker rooms tense up. A single hand signal turns a player into the loudest headline in the league. That's where DJ Carrington's story stops being a hot take and becomes a pressure test. The viral clips, the flagrant whistles, the trade that sent her from noise to a contender. Fans say it proves everything they've argued for months. Others say the label stuck long before the facts did. So which is it? Chaos magnet or misunderstood enforcer? Tonight, we trace the path from a black eye that wouldn't leave the discourse, to a post-game standoff that stunned everyone, to a roster move that could swing a championship race. You'll see why some teams run from that kind of heat, and why one just bet its season on it. But the moment that flips the whole narrative didn't happen in a tunnel. It happened at mid-court, with millions watching, and it set off a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Stay sharp. This is where the story really starts.
DiJonai, DiJonai, you're always in a dirty play. DiJonai, DiJonai, once again, here we are today. Oh, DiJonai.
The jersey changed. The conversation didn't. Dallas wanted edge on the perimeter, a stopper who wouldn't blink against scorers who live in the lane. Carrington brought exactly that. Strong hands, no hesitation. And then came the first moment that made the league lean forward. Early season, Minneapolis. Early physical game already humming. Minnesota attacks, bodies stack in the paint, and Jessica Shepard goes up strong. Carrington meets her at the summit, late by a heartbeat, high by an inch. Contact lands above the shoulders. Whistle, review. Flagrant one. The building exhaled. The timeline did the rest. To some, it was textbook. Fast help, late angle, bad result. To others, it was confirmation. The clip they'd been waiting to file under a word they'd already picked out. That's how narratives work. They don't measure inches, they measure reactions. And this one landed loud, reckless, intent, same story. The chorus wrote itself before the ruling even came back from the table. Dallas circled wagons. Teammates kept the message simple. Play hard, next possession. Carrington didn't offer apologies for being herself. She kept the stance that defense is a contact sport and the line is thinner at pro speed. That posture, unmoved, unbothered, played as defiance to critics and conviction to supporters. Either way, the effect was the same. Every closeout got a spotlight. Every reach drew a headline. The quiet truth sat beneath the noise. Once a player carries a label, every collision gets graded on a curve. A clean block becomes finally. A normal foul becomes again. And when you live at the point of attack, the margins are razor thin. One half step late and the story writes you, not the other way around. But the next clip didn't leave any room for slow motion debate. It wasn't a tangle in traffic. It wasn't two players twisting in a crowded paint. It was open floor, full throttle, and a star guard exploding to the rim, followed by a hit that made the league stop and replay it from every angle. And it happened in Seattle. Open floor. One turnover, one outlet, and Skylar Diggins-Smith streaking into space the way only stars do. Carrington sprinted back, angle shrinking with every step. She rose to contest. Contact landed high. Whistle, immediate. The sound that tells everyone in the building this isn't a routine foul. Officials went to the table. The arena went quiet in that electric way. People still talking, but softer, waiting. Flagrant one. Not ejection, but more than a common. 2 shots and the ball. Seattle capitalized. The scoreboard moved, but the bigger swing was reputational. Clips hit timelines before the free throws were done. Fans didn't argue mechanics, they argued meaning. Some saw reckless speed turning into dangerous contact. Others saw the physics of a chase down gone wrong. Fast bodies, bad angle, unfortunate result. The same play, 2 realities. That's what happens when a name carries a narrative. The call becomes a verdict on character, not just a moment. Carrington pushed back the only way a player can in season: words and work. She framed it as a play on the ball, a miss by inches, not a message. She doubled down on being the defender who refuses easy layups, who meets force with force, who tests how much pressure a scorer really wants at the rim. To her supporters, that sounded like backbone. To her detractors, it sounded like denial. Either way, the effect was immediate. Every camera found her on the next trip. Every bump drew a chorus. The game had a new subplot, and it followed her into every city after. That's the tax you pay when a clip becomes a label. You start each night with the audience already decided. But the most surreal scene ahead didn't involve a fast break at all. No sprint, no collision. Just words after a horn, a hand motion from a referee, and a building watching security step onto the floor. The kind of moment people in this league swear they've never seen until they did, and it changed everything that came next. The horn had already sounded. Players were cooling down, words hanging in the air the way they do after a close game. Carrington walked toward an official. Frustration, questions, the usual post-game friction. Then came the moment that froze the building. A small wave from the referee, and security stepped forward. No sprint, no shove, no pileup. Just a hand signal that said this conversation needed witnesses. People who've been around the league for decades swear they've never seen it. And that's why it detonated online. 1,000 interpretations in a minute. She crossed a line. He escalated it. This is what her reputation does. For once, the clip didn't need slow motion. It said everything by saying almost nothing. Carrington called it a civil exchange. Her supporters echoed that. Tone calm, distance close, nothing more. Her critics heard something else. Tension that follows when every whistle feels personal, and every word arrives with history attached. That's the problem with reputations. They show up to conversations before you do. Inside locker rooms, that signal mattered. It turned a narrative into a liability. Coaches and front offices don't like variables they can't control. And this one was bigger than a box score. If a post-game chat can pull security into the frame, what happens in a playoff series when the stakes double? What happens on the road with a crowd leaning over the rail, waiting to take sides? For Dallas, the calculus shifted. The team needed quiet around the edges and production in the middle. What it had, fair or not, was a storyline that swallowed the margins of every game. That's when decisions move from we'll monitor to we'll act. And when the phone rings from a contender that believes it can channel heat into hardware, you listen. Because the next headline didn't arrive from a whistle or a clip. It arrived as a transaction alert, a name moving across the ticker, a locker being cleared out, and a contender deciding that the right culture can turn a storm into a weapon. For Dallas, the calculus shifted. The team needed quiet around the edges and production in the middle. What it had, fair or not, was a storyline that swallowed the margins of every game. That's when decisions move from we'll monitor to we'll act. And when the phone rings from a contender that believes it can channel heat into hardware, you listen. Because the next headline didn't arrive from a whistle or a clip. It arrived as a transaction alert, a name moving across the ticker, a locker being cleared out, and a contender deciding that the right culture can turn a storm into a weapon. Contenders don't wait for narratives to cool, they weaponize them. On August 3rd, Minnesota made its move, prying DiJonai Carrington from Dallas for a 3-piece return. Diamond Miller, Carly Samuelson, and a 2027 second-rounder. The message was simple. Add on-ball pressure, add attitude, and dare the league to keep up. The paperwork said, transaction. The subtext said, we're going for it. Why now? Because timing is everything. The Lynx were already staring at a title path, and at a short-term gap with Napheesa Collier sidelined by a right ankle sprain. In that window, they didn't want a placeholder. They wanted a disruptor who could tilt matchups on the perimeter and keep the edge high until their star returns. Carrington's calling card, pressure at the point of attack, a body that doesn't give ground, fit the urgency of a team playing for June, not January. This isn't a charity case. It's a culture bet. Minnesota believes structure turns heat into horsepower. Put a relentless defender inside a system that demands discipline, and the rough edges can become an advantage instead of a liability. Give her a defined role, a short leash on the margins, and a locker room that polices standards from within, and you've got a version of DJ that makes scouting reports miserable. That's the wager. A high-floor defense with a higher ceiling when the rotations tighten and possessions slow. Dallas, for its part, cashed in on upside and shooting, resetting the temperature around its roster in one afternoon. But this chapter isn't about what the Wings moved off. It's about what the Lynx think they can unlock. If it clicks, Minnesota gets nastier at the point of attack and more switchable when games turn into half-court chess. If it doesn't, they've imported noise into a room that didn't need any. Labels are easy. Film is harder. Somewhere between those two lives, the truth about DJ Carrington. Start with the obvious. She plays on the edge, strong base, quick hands, comfortable in contact. That package creates steals, rushed shots, and broken sets. It also creates collisions that live in the gray. At pro speed, inches become headlines. Timing becomes intent in the court of public opinion. Critics point to the highlight reel that won't go away. High contact, hard contests, moments that look ugly in freeze frame. Supporters answer with the other reel. Possessions where she blows up a handoff, locks a first option, or turns a clean catch into a panicked dribble. Same player, two compilations. Which one you believe depends on what you came to see. There's another layer people skip. How edge interacts with whistle. Officials are human. Narratives seep into close calls. Once a player is tagged, borderline moves become flags in the mind. A clean block gets a long look. A routine foul feels heavier. The curve bends. When you live at the point of attack, meeting stars at their first step, that bend shows up on the stat line and the timeline. Carrington's stance has been consistent. She calls her game aggressive, not malicious. She leans on the language every elite defender uses: angles, hands, verticality, body control. To her, it's a race against elite creation. Win the first inch or lose the whole possession. That conviction reads as backbone to some, stubbornness to others. But it's the lens she plays through every night. The question that actually matters isn't moral, it's practical. Does the defense outweigh the drama? Can the stops, strips, and disrupted actions outpace the whistles and the storms that follow? That math changes on a contender. On a team that expects to play deep into spring, every possession is magnified. Every sideline conversation is a story. Winning makes edges tolerable. Losing makes them intolerable. Strip away the chatter, and you're left with a simple blueprint for survival. Stay within the frame. Sprint to angles instead of swiping through faces. Make first contact at the chest, not above. Contest through the core, not the crown. Force stars into your help and let the system answer the question, not your hands. It's not about turning a bulldog into a butterfly. It's about converting chaos into controlled pressure. Because reputations don't rewrite themselves with apologies or quotes. They rewrite with months of clean tape, with big games where the only headline is the scoreboard, with a playoff series where your assignment shoots below his average and no one remembers why. Only that you were there, every step, no drama attached. Minnesota doesn't audition chaos. It auditions commitment. That's the difference when you walk into a room built by a coach who treats culture like a playbook, documented, taught, enforced. Cheryl Reeves' teams run on clarity. Roles aren't vibes, they're verbs. Point of attack defender, your job is to compress space without bleeding fouls. Nail help, arrive on time, leave on balance. Low man rotations, no heroic swipes. Show, tag, recover. The language is simple, so the standards can be strict, and strict is the point. When everyone knows the rule set, there's no room for "I didn't know." This is where DJ Carrington either levels up or gets left behind. The edge that sparked arguments in other zip codes can fuel Minnesota if it's aimed, not sprayed. Close the gap early so contests happen at the chest, not the crown. Chase ball handlers into length, not into faces. Bother first dribbles, not foreheads. Same fire, different targets. The minutes here aren't charity, they're contracts. Deliver the terms, you stay. Break them, you sit. That's how the Lynx protect the room. Veterans run the temperature. One look in a huddle tells you when the line's been crossed. Film sessions don't do drama, they do receipts and consequences. You learn fast that "we" isn't a slogan, it's a set of obligations. The scheme actually suits Carrington's strengths. She can blitz a handoff, blow up a first read, and turn a clean catch into a bad angle before the action even breathes. In a switching shell, that aggression becomes a scalpel. Hard show, peel back, stunt at the nail, recover on the flight of the pass. It's pressure without wandering. It's edge without extra. There's also a pacing gear she hasn't always shown, controlled refusal. Not every chase is a block attempt. Sometimes the win is forcing a gather, burning a second, funneling into a trap. Minnesota prizes those hidden victories, the ones that don't trend but swing possessions. If DJ stacks those, the narrative quiets on its own. Inside the locker room, credibility is a currency. You earn it by being early to rotations, late to nonsense, and consistent when the game gets thin. Do that for a month, and teammates start trusting you in the last 3 minutes. Do it for 2, and the coaches trust you with the first assignment in a playoff series. That is the ladder. No shortcuts, no speeches. If this sounds rigid, that's because it is, on purpose. The Lynx didn't build contention on "we'll see." They built it on "we do." For Carrington, that's freeing. You don't have to win the argument about who you are. You just have to win the possession that's in front of you. This isn't just a chapter change. It's a career fork. For DJ Carrington, the next 8 weeks decide which version of her name survives. If she stacks disciplined minutes, clean contests, on-time help, smart pressure, the footage drowns out the buzz. Contracts listen to that kind of tape. So do rotations in May. For Minnesota, the margin is thinner than it looks. Contenders don't need highlights. They need reliability. One badly timed whistle in a fourth quarter can flip a series. One controlled stop can win it. Carrington's edge can raise their defensive ceiling, but only if it lives inside the lines. If it spills, the cost arrives fast. Free throws, foul trouble, momentum leaking out of timeouts. Dallas made a different kind of bet. They traded temperature for fit, length, and scoring with fewer side plots. If their spacing opens, if their young core grows without the static, the move reads like strategy, not surrender. They didn't just move a player. They reset the sound in the room. That matters over 40 games more than fans admit. The league has skin in this one too. The conversation around physicality and protection doesn't end with a trade. It follows star matchups, fuels talk shows, and shapes how new fans read the game. If a player known for pressure can play hard, play clean, and play deep into spring, it proves there's a lane for intensity that doesn't put the product at risk. If the opposite happens, the policy debates get louder than the playoffs. There's also the locker room math that never trends. Teammates forgive hard plays that help them win. They do not forgive avoidable chaos that puts them on their heels. Earn trust by shrinking space, not options. Be the reason a scorer gives the ball up early, not the reason the huddle burns a review on damage control. Reputation is abstract. Trust is practical, all of which makes the assignment simple and brutal. Win the next possession, not the narrative, not the quote, the possession. Sprint your angle, square the chest, show hands, finish vertical, next trip. Stack that sequence until the label runs out of places to stick. That's how reputations go quiet, by starving them of new material. If it hits, Minnesota gets scarier. Matchups tilt, close games bend. A parade becomes plausible. If it misses, the clock won't be kind. Rotations tighten and patience shrinks. The league moves on and the headline stays stuck.